Senior strategic analyst and four-star General Jack Keane. Now, first, thank you for your service, General. And without you and others in the military, we could not have the freedom to have this conversation. Now, before we get to Ukraine, it seems 2023 was the world caught fire. And there was conflict in Ukraine. There was conflict in the Red Sea, Israel at our southern border, Venezuela threatening its neighbor. What happened in 2023?
Yeah, well, there really is a pattern that's unfolding here right before our eyes. The United States is facing global security challenge, Edward, on a scale we haven't seen since the height of the Cold War and prior to that, World War II. Our adversaries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, have all become more aggressive in the last few years, as they are willing to confront us. And certainly our allies in a rules-based order. We have three geographic areas in the world, Edward, that the last two administrations have defined as our vital national interest. And we have war in two of them. And you mentioned it, Europe and the Middle East. And President Xi in the Pacific is threatening war. So what is really happening here is that our adversaries really believe that the United States is weak in leadership. That's their perception. And we have to face the reality of that. They also think that we've lost our political will to confront them. And there's been some evidence of that. And they also think we're in decline. And the United States military, while it's still number one in the world, the reality is we're not the same military that we used to be. Right. And so our adversaries here see this as vulnerability, and they are taking advantage of the opportunity.
Right. And General, I want to get this in on Ukraine this week. Russia launched its largest aerial assault on Ukraine since the war began, using drones and missiles, some of those missiles with hypersonic capabilities. In a statement, President Biden says that we cannot let our allies and our partners down. We cannot let Ukraine down. History will judge harshly those who fail to answer freedom's call. I want to get your reaction to the attack and then the president's response.
Yeah, well, certainly Russia is going to be pulling out all the stops that they can in 24. You mentioned it, the Ukraine operation to take back territory on a large scale has stalled. I've talked to senior U.S. military leaders and Ukraine leaders in their defense and military officials as well. And I've concluded that they both learned major lessons from what took place. They know what went wrong. They know they were too ambitious in trying to conduct U.S. NATO doctrine and how to deal with the most difficult aspect of war, taking on a deliberate defense operation. And to do that without being able to train properly and synchronize their efforts properly prior to doing it, and do it without air power and air defense. And they got an outcome that putting all that together was likely. They know they have different options going forward. They're going to develop a path to go forward. The center of gravity here, Edward, completely depends on the United States and allies and partners in providing them with what they need and when they need it. If that doesn't happen, Ukraine doesn't have much of a chance.
And I want to switch gears now, talk about one of those other spheres of influence, Iran and Iranian proxies over the past week or so. And I've talked with former commander of the USS Cole, and I've talked with a retired lieutenant general of the Air Force. Both of them said that this administration needs to strike Houthi sites where the drones and missiles are coming from. What do you think about that as a strategy?
Well, I think that's part of it, but the administration has not come to grips with what is really taking place here. The proxies that are operating in the region, Hamas in Israel, the Hezbollah also in northern Israel, the Houthis trying to shut down the Suez Canal, the proxies out of Syria and also out of Iraq, all operating with support and sometimes direction of Iran. And we failed to deal with that issue. That is the seminal issue. The United States' unwillingness to deal with Iran. Yes, take down the rockets and missiles at the point of origin, their command and control, and their radar. But also, you have to send an unequivocal message to Iran. We've been saying it for weeks. The administration fears escalation.
Is it a message of a strike?
Paralyzes them.
Is it a strike in Iran, or is it some other kind of message?
No, I'm absolutely convinced you need to do what Reagan did and also what Trump did in actually confronting Iran on its own territory and or taking its leaders out, much as we did with Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, and much we just saw Israel do with one of the Iranian RGC generals in Syria. You've got to deal with the Iranians, not just with their proxies. And that's the reality. They're going to keep coming after us until we do.
General Jack Keane, I appreciate it. This obviously will continue into the next year. Your insight, greatly appreciated. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Great talking to you, Edwin.
Yeah,